Hey, this is It's Mental Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Sarah Tollemache. She is a professional stand-up comedian based in New York. I got to know her when she was traveling in Berlin last winter. Actually, not last winter, before Christmas, right? It was.
Yeah, right before Christmas.
Yeah, right before Christmas, and with her husband Jolis, and they did a comedy show in Berlin. It was packed. I think the every comedian in Berlin was in that show, and it was such a blast. And Sarah was talking about her depression and her husband's OCD on stage. So I thought, okay, maybe we can do an episode. And it's happening now. I'm very happy. So Sarah, I hand over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I am a stand-up comic. I reside in New York City, and that's where I've been living for the past 12 years. I'm actually from Houston, Texas, and I started there and moved up here 12 years ago to pursue it full time. And that's what I've been doing.
Wow. So as a comedian, I'm really interested in. So 12 years ago, what make you decide, okay, I want to do stand-up full-timely, and was it a big jump for you?
Well, I grew up with my parents, they loved stand-up comedy. And also right when the time when I started forming probably memories, HBO was a thing. I guess a streaming service, but like it's a broadcast. And they started doing a lot of stand-up specials, and we'd always watch those. And I always just enjoyed the format. So it was always something that I really liked to do. And then I think I started writing stand-up or try to write jokes when I was a senior in high school. And then it wasn't until I was like 20 that I saw kind of an open call audition for a comedy fest. And then I realized everybody there seemed very polished. And then from there, I understood that there's open mics that you go to in your city, and that's how you got better and meet other comics. So I started in Houston like that. And I did that for close to 10 years. Wow. In my early 20s to my 30 in Houston, and then 30 till now is I've been in New York doing it. But I was like you, I don't think you mentioned that on the actual recording of this podcast, but like I got broken up with by a guy, and I remember just being like tired of living my life kind of for somebody else. And it was kind of the catalyst to live my life on my own terms. And I always wanted to do stand-up. And then that's when I saw the open casting call. So then I kind of took advantage. So it was kind of from a breakup point of view to just like, do something for myself rather than, because at the time I was just driving down every weekend to see this guy, and then he completely ghosted me. And I thought we were boyfriend, but apparently not.
me too. I did I told you before the recording. So I also started to do comedy because in 2018, I was heartbroken by a guy I love, my boyfriend, and then I realized we are not even seeing each other. We're just having sex on a regular basis for 6 months. And I'm like, okay, you are my man, and I love you. And how dare you treat me like this? So I was really depressed, and I was suicidal. And I thought, I went to see therapist, and I thought, she asked me why I'm depressed. I said, because I cannot, this guy is not nice to me, and he doesn't want to be with me. And then the more I went through therapies, I realized, he's not my boyfriend, and we are not seeing each other. I realized, okay, my life was falling apart, and this is just a symptom.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like as soon as you kind of start working on yourself, things get better. And then you realize like when someone's not into you, it's actually, it's not their problem. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, I should have accepted that. I can't force someone to like me. So yeah, just like kind of working on that. That was the same kind of reason why I moved to New York in my 30. I was in a long-term relationship in Houston thinking that we were kind of getting engaged. And then I said before I got married, because I felt like getting married in Houston probably would have squashed my dreams to actually pursue stand-up, that I was like, can I try it in New York? And then that ended poorly, but it was the feeling of like, I just have to do this for myself. And then it all kind of worked out, because then I ended up meeting Joe, my husband now, who's in stand-up, and it's in the city that I'm supposed to be in for the career that I wanted. And then a guy that just totally got and likes me for me. And it's like, he wants to be with me. So that was, it all worked out in that way. But I do feel like as soon as you start kind of working on yourself and not worried about like meeting a guy or the perfect partner, it kind of weirdly works out for itself, I think.
This is so strange. I feel exactly, I feel the same. You know, like when I was with this guy, I said, why you don't want to be with me? He said, because I don't love me. I was like, what do you mean you don't love me?
Yeah.
I was out of the space. I couldn't accept the reality. And I'm like, yeah, but we are together so much. We have so much fun, and we see each other 3 times per week. What do you mean you don't love me? And I went really, really crazy. And then thinking back, I'm like, oh yeah, especially when I met the right guy, I feel, wow, that's how it feels like. But also it's not about the right guy. It's also because I'm in the right mental space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's, I mean, everyone's like, oh, my soulmate, but I don't really feel like it's that way. It's more about you.
Yeah. And you know, actually I don't listen to Jolie's podcast, but I have a friend, he listened to Jolie's podcast. The other day we were talking. So this friend, he is a little bit struggling with his romantic life. And he said, oh, when he listened to Jolie's podcast, Jolie's described his relationship with you. Jolie said, oh, sometimes he can just lie in the bed with you for hours and talking about everything. And then he realized, oh, there's no one in this world understand him like you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how Jolie described your relationship. And this friend told me, he said, he realized in the past 5 years, he never reached to a point to feel similar, this kind of feeling to anyone. And when Jolie described it, he's like, oh, that's what I'm looking for. And that's what a good relationship should feel like. And when he told me this, I'm like, wow, interesting, because because that's how I feel with my current relationship. And I got dumped a while ago, and then I meet my current boyfriend, who is also a stand-up comedian. We were friends before we start dating, and everything just went so well. And this guy told me he loves me like just a few weeks after we start dating.
Yeah.
And then I traveled back, my mind traveled back like 4 years ago. I was begging this guy, I'm like, what do you mean you don't love me? Why you don't want to be with me? Then I realized, okay, the rejection to me is really about like, I'm not in the right mental space and I'm not meeting the right person. It's not about I don't deserve love.
Yeah. And also, you know, it's weird. It sounds so cheesy, but there is kind of empowerment to just accept that like someone's not into you. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's just like you are not compatible with each other. Like it's not what that person's looking for. And you can't really, and then when you're with somebody like that, like it closes you off to be with somebody that you could be compatible with. Mm-hmm. So and there is like liberty that eventually, I just don't like it when I get strung along where they've made me feel like they are in a relationship with me or that they do like me, which that has happened. But I've also just ignored all the red flags that they clearly weren't that into me because I wanted something so bad from them.
Yeah. I think like sometimes when we say, okay, this guy is an asshole, like he did this, that to me, and he lied to me. But when I look back, after some time, I realized, okay, did he lie? Yes. But did he do a good job? No. But
No.
why I believe it? Because I wanted to believe it.
Yeah. It's hard. I know, because I remember talking about this recently, like the previous guy years ago. I remember being like, I thought I wanted him to get or us to get married. And he obviously kept being like, I don't believe in marriage, which my therapist at the time was like, that's not true. Like all these guys always say that. And then as soon as they break up with you, they'll marry someone right away or something ridiculous like that. So it just means they don't want to get married to you. And it was nice to like hear that from like a therapist to kind of set you into reality. But also at the same time, I'm like, oh, why won't he marry me? But then I'm also at that time, like I was a raging alcoholic, like so I wasn't, of course I shouldn't have gotten married. That would have been horrible for me to have got married. And I mean, he probably was rightfully so to not want to marry me. So now having that time to reflect back and see my accountability in the situation, it just seems ridiculous now.
Sarah, it's so funny. Like our relationship pattern is so similar because
Yeah.
my previous boyfriend, we are together for 3.5 years, and we move in. We have a life together. We were very integrated with each other family. But he says he doesn't believe in marriage. His dad and mom divorced in a very badly manner, and he doesn't believe in marriage. And my mom says he he probably will marry someone else. It's just not with you. I'm like, no, you don't understand. We are in very good relationship. It's really about his beliefs. Like, don't say things like this. And I got so mad. And eventually I even decided, marriage is not, I'm fine. I can do without marriage because I was so committed with this guy. And then
you're like ignoring what you want for yourself. Because they're just spewing I don't know. I don't want to call it bullshit because I'm sure there are some people that just don't believe in marriage, but then they should be with a partner that also, I would do the same thing. Like I'd be like, oh, I guess I don't need marriage. But at the same time, you're like, but why won't you marry me if we're living together and kind of living like this? Like it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I've seen that with guys too, being like, I don't want any kids. And then they all get kids. So it's like when you hear somebody say that to you, sometimes I just like, if that's what you want and they're saying that, it just means you really do have to take it as they don't want kids or they don't want to get married to you, because that's what they're saying.
Yeah. I think they are not really necessarily lying to you. Maybe they don't even know it yet. Like, for example, like my ex-boyfriend, we were 3.5 years together. And one day he came home. He said he wants a breakup because he realized he have commitment issue. I'm like, wow, that's perfect time to have commitment issue after commit with each other 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And then he moved out. After a month or so, we talked again. He during this relationship, he has such commitment issue that he refused to buy bed. He refused to buy furniture. He cannot commit to anything long term. And I feel like I was like, you need to see a therapist. You need to see a therapist. And then after the breakup, he moved to new place. He's like, oh, I had an epiphany. I realized I want to have a nice place. I want to buy furniture. I want to buy bed. I want to make everything nice. And then he said, I realized he didn't want to settle down. He didn't want to invest on everything. It's because he didn't want to really have a life with me.
It feels harsh, but you're like, why would Why would you just want to be in a relationship with somebody that's just like obviously doesn't want to be in a relationship with you?
Yeah, I think it's a learning curve. I think it's a learning curve. Like on one hand, this guy, he needs to learn, okay, next time when he doesn't want to buy furniture, probably it means he doesn't want to be with this girl. But as a girl, like myself, I also learned that, okay, in the future, this is a red flags and I'm not going to engage with it.
I know. It's so annoying how much life is trial and error. Like, don't you wish you just knew all that stuff so you didn't waste your time? But I mean, all of this is just like learning perspective. Like, I don't really feel like until my 30s, that's when I kind of realized what I wanted for myself and what I wouldn't tolerate anymore. And I felt like that was really beneficial for me. And it did take a while, but it took all those other relationships to learn, you know, the same way. Like I had the same thing. There was a guy that I was going to move to LA with years ago, and we're still really, really good friends. And he's married, but he was in the moving. We were at like the place to get the moving company, and I'm bawling my eyes out. And it was because I was having so much fun in Houston. I didn't want to move to LA. And I just ignored my feelings. I should have ended the relationship there because we broke up a year later, but I knew then. But it's not that those are those things like later on in life or when you get a little bit older, when you're not doing something, it means you don't want to do it. And I think we kind of ignore our feelings because we think we're maybe being irrational or something. Or nervous or anxious, but you're like, no, I don't want to do it.
I think like we need to learn more about our gut feelings, that to listen to, okay, if I don't want to do something, no matter if it's the right feeling or wrong feeling, but I think for our happiness, like we enjoy to not do things we don't want to do. So not doing it is the right thing.
Yeah, I remember the first year of sobriety. I work a 12-step program, and they say they don't date, and I totally agree with that within the first year because you're just trying to get like your bearings. But I stopped dating guys that kind of gave me that like nervous feeling, and then I was like, I'm only going to date nice guys or guys that are into me. But then that was another thing I ignored. So I would date a guy that he was into me and then I wasn't into them. And I was just ignoring my feelings about that. So it goes like, it's both ways too, where you're just like, oh, I'm just ignoring how I feel about the situation.
Yeah.
And then it took after that one to be like, okay, I actually have to like the guy.
Yeah. So you talk about alcoholism issues. May I ask, when do you realize you have alcoholic issues?
Well, I remember I guess in my early 20s and within like the first year of drinking, kind of like I started kind of drinking my senior year, and I started realizing nobody else was doing what I was doing. Like I was, throwing up at parties. Nobody else was really doing that. I mean, at a certain age, maybe like, but then they all kind of like grew out. And then in my early 20s, I started realizing like all of my friends were like, lives were moving on and mine was just kind of stuck. And I was so depressed. I was hungover all the time. And I would try to like go a few days without drinking, and I could do it or a week. And then by the time the weekend hit, I would just, I guess, go on benders, just drinking for several days straight, partying. And I just realized it seemed like I couldn't stop. It was always on my mind. When I did stop, then I was thinking of when I could probably start having drinks again. And it was an obsession. And there's that adage of you just get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I did that for 10 years because you keep her like, maybe I'll drink wine. Maybe that's, I'll just do wine or I'll just smoke weed. And then it always just like it would go in a cycle where I'd be really good. And then 2 months later, I'd be back to where I started from. And then I also realized the people I was hanging out with were also just like alcoholics and drug addicts. And the guys I would date would also be alcoholics, because that meant that they weren't calling me out on my stuff, because, we're both bad. And we both could drink the way that we wanted to drink. So it was just like realizing the quality of my life was just not where I wanted to be. It was so small, like, just like drink all night, be so hungover in the morning, kind of cancel obligations. And it would just be like this small tunnel vision of a life. And I just one day, I had, I guess, several bottoms. I had kind of 2 sexual assaults, not serious, but enough to be like, I realized I was also just putting myself in bad situations, like, and realizing I have a pattern. And so it was moments like that. Like several bottoms is what they call it, of being like, this is all because of drinking. All of this, everything that's bad in my life is because of drinking. And so I just made the conscious decision to stop. But then it was hard. And that's how I got involved in like a 12-step program, because you are going with it with other people. And I think a big part of drug addiction and alcoholism, and that there are studies coming out, a lot of it is just about like isolation. It's a weird disease, because it's, people think it's like genetic, but I actually don't think it is completely genetic. I think people that if they don't have it in their family, you can have it like be okay. And then in your 30s, all of a sudden, like you're just codependent on alcohol and drugs. But I feel like, when you know.
Yeah. And during the 10 years, like, were you thinking, oh, maybe I'm alcoholic, or is all kicking at once?
I had one, it was like a sexual assault. I went out drinking with who I thought was a friend. I let them crash on I lived in a studio. I knew them. I thought it was okay for them to crash on my couch, and they tried to attempt doing something. And the shame, I had to like kick them out of my apartment. And the shame that I felt from that was so, like, the next day was so suicidal and embarrassing. And fortunately at the time I was going to therapy, and I had talked about this with my therapist, and I told her all like the drinking. And that's when I kind of came out saying, I think I'm an alcoholic. And she was like, you totally are. And it was until 10 years later when I fully stopped. But that was like when I was 21 or 22 when that happened. So I hadn't been like my drinking career probably was like at 3 years in, but it was bad. So I had inclinations, and it runs in, my grandfather was inflicted with it, and like committed suicide ultimately because of it. So I was aware that was a thing in our family.
and during this like 10 years, like after you realize that you have alcohol issue, till you start to do the 12-step program, how's your life like? Were you able to managing a functioning life? Were you trying on and off with alcohol?
Yeah, like when I did 12-step program, it's weird because you kind of feel like once you quit drinking or doing drugs and alcohol, or the thing that you think is your problem in your life, you think that your life is going to, like, I guess they call it pink cloud, or like cash and prizes. Like you're all of a sudden you're just going to be really successful. You're going to find the man of your dreams. You're going to get promoted to the job that you wanted, but you don't. And I always tell that with people that are newly getting sober, like, don't think your life, it's going to get better, but in a way that you're not going to realize. And it took me probably about a year in. There was a day where I managed to like run errands for my mom, go meet a friend, go do shows. And it wasn't until like at the end of the day when I reflected back, I was like, Oh, wow. I managed to do a lot, like a million little things, and nothing was annoying or over like a burden for me. And I remember being like feeling really good about it that I could
Mhm.
just be there and do the mundane
Uh-huh.
and really kind of enjoy it and accept it. And I was like, oh, I think this is what they're talking about in sobriety
Mhm.
is like your life opens up. And that's how I felt like it opened up for me. And I stopped canceling plans. I focused more on like my career because when you quit drinking or doing drugs, I think about 8 hours of your life opens up every day.
Every day. Wow, that's
Every day. Cause
yeah.
you're like, I'm going to bars. That's 4 hours, 5 hours. I'm hanging out. I'm sleeping in. Or I'm going out to eat. Like late night eating because I'm hungry from drinking. It's just like there's so much time wasted with drugs and alcohol that you have so much time during the day now. So you inadvertently start working on your life.
Yeah, that sounds so cool. Like to have more time and energy to do things. I check your YouTube videos. I found like unable to do errands is a recurring theme in your material. Um,
Yeah.
do you still feel hard to get things done?
Yeah. I always joke that it's like everybody else got a handbook for life and I didn't.
Mhm.
I don't know why things feel difficult for me. Like sometimes when I would have to work a day job, the idea of working in an office was so anxiety inducing for me, like answering a telephone. I I somebody's asking something of me, I don't know if I can deliver that. I don't believe in myself in that way. Like
Mm.
those are the things that are very difficult for me. Also, I'm learning to get better at this, but if accepting life of like, yeah, life is just running errands. It's not
Mhm.
cool moments. You rarely have cool moments. So you might as well accept that you have to run errands and do the bullshit
Mhm.
and try to find fun in it. And I think that's why I enjoy maybe probably writing jokes about that, like the mundane
Mhm.
stuff of life. Or like I find it comical where you're like, I can't believe we're on this planet, the probability of life, and then I have to go deposit a check.
Yeah. I used to also have lots of issue of running errands. I think now I got much better. Uh, I don't know about you, but for my reason, I realized I have ADD. Um,
I think I do too, but then I'm like, doesn't it feel like everybody probably does?
yeah, probably. And I read a few books about ADD, and I realized, okay, my life is it's like a when I'm unable to do things, then I feel I'm a piece of shit and then my life is falling apart and I hate
Yes.
myself. Then I lie in bed and I want to kill myself. Then I cannot get out of the bed. And it's a downward spiral.
Yes, very relatable. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like you just feel like a big piece of shit when you can't get shit done. And I do agree, like I do think ADHD is a thing that I'm inflicted on. I've never been like diagnosed, but like when you see the symptoms, you're like, all of that. Somebody said something about like, we don't like to read instructions. We'd rather just do like the trial and error because it just like feels better to us.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I learned quite a few tricks from the books I read. Later, I can write to you the names of books. Uh,
Oh, definitely. I'm always like, yeah, because it is a huge problem. Like time management is a huge problem for me. Uh like before and I didn't even have time to eat. I took a phone call early and I was like, maybe I can fit in a run. And then I got home and then I had to get ready. That you're like, I did have all the time, but I decided to watch TikTok videos for about 30 minutes. That
Mhm.
could have been the time I could have eaten.
Yeah, I heard you talk with every chauffeur that you play like your phone 8 hours per day.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
bad. Well, it sucks because like nowadays for what we do for stand up, you kind of have to self promote and put videos up all the time. And then this is my other problem that I deal with, and I'm trying to learn to separate, is that I think I get a dopamine rush for getting external validation. I don't know what psychology is. If something, I don't know. Of course, my therapist would be like, it's from your childhood. You didn't get the love that you need. And I'm like, I know, but it's like, what parent can be that? I had it pretty decent. What parent? And it's like, what do they need to do in order for me not to have external validation from like social media? But yeah, like I'll post a video and then I'm just refreshing all day. Or I do really enjoy TikTok. I feel like I learn stuff and not learn stuff.
I really recommend this. There's a author I really like. His name is Zhang. He wrote 3 books, all related to mental health. So the first book is about substance and addiction, and also the whole history of war on drugs and the politics and the science involved. The second book is called Lost Connections. It's a book about anxiety and depression. It helped me so much. Like it's also inspired me to start the Berlin Mental Health Festival.
Yeah.
And the third book, I think you have to read it. It's called Stolen Focus. It's a book about distraction and unable to focus. And he talked about why you are not able to focus. There are lots of reasons: nutritional, societal, political, and commercially, and everything. And now I learned from this book. I got this device you can get on Amazon.
Okay.
Called a kitchen safe. So it's a box. Basically, once you set the timer and lock it, there's no way you can open it.
I love that, because I have been working on like when I need to work on a project or edit video, I'll leave my phone upstairs.
I lock
so
my
I don't
phone.
look at it.
Yeah, and he also recommended an app called Freedom app. So every time when I need to focus, for example, last week, 2 weeks ago, I was preparing for my solo show.
Yeah.
Then I found myself distracting myself in insane ways, like really insane ways. And then at one point, I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. So I downloaded this app called the Freedom app on my laptop. It can block access to all websites that can distract me.
Yeah.
And after I click on that, I realized I cannot go Facebook. I cannot write emails anymore. I cannot watch YouTube video. And then I was like, okay, let me see, how can I hack this app?
Yeah.
So I found out if I log out or how do you say, delete the app, I can see Facebook again. And
yeah.
And then I got so frustrated. I even called their customer service. I'm like, what kind of app you are making if I can just log out? Like it's useless. And they told me, actually, there's a setting. Like if I set it, then once I start to block the website, I can not log out of the app, and I cannot delete the app. And I also, it prevent me to go to the back side of the computer to from the to how do you say, delete it, use coding. Nothing I can do. And once I set it like that, then for 24 hours or whatever hours I want, I cannot contact anyone. I cannot browse on website. And then I found out, okay, I cannot use WhatsApp web, but I found out I still can use iMessage.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone on iMessage, so I just start to check the conversation I had from ages ago, and I start to type to people I haven't contacted for years. I'm like, this is
we're like, it's so, I know, it's almost like, I think I'm going to just start with a box first before I do the Freedom app. But yeah, it's so insane. Now you spent all this time trying to hack the app while you're supposed to be working on your project. It's really hard to battle the brain. It's so hard. But they would say that you can trick it, or like, there's certain things that I believe in. Like sometimes I think I look into a negative mindset. And then when you see that, that's all or when you think that that's what you see. And so trying to program your mind into a positive mindset is really hard when you're so used to being like in a negative loop, I think.
Yeah, it's insane. I suffer a lot from distractions. I'm very good at procrastinating. But now I have two of those boxes. One is to lock my devices, and one is to lock my drugs. And then I also have the freedom app. So when I really need to concentrate, I would like disconnect with anything. Like I cannot contact anyone. I cannot watch any YouTube videos or go on Facebook or send a message or send an email. And I'm just, then in that case, I still can find some way to distract myself. For example, clean my house. Like, like I haven't cleaned my toilet for like 2 months, and I'm like, oh, it's perfect time to deep clean everything.
I start filing. I do everything, like things you would never want to do on a day off, but it's just like, I just don't want to deal with the one thing that I have to get done today.
Wow, Sarah, I feel like we have so many similar symptoms.
Yeah, we do. No, it's really bad. But then I've accepted that, like, you know what? Maybe procrastination is the way that I do it. Or like the last minute, I have to accept like that's what I need is the last minute. I'm not a planner, and I still get things done. I do. Like it all works out.
Yeah, I think that's also a very big part of mental health. I think to accept that you are not perfect, and this is just part of your process. Like when I procrastinate, I feel like panic. I'm like, oh, I'm not working, and then I try to reassure myself, oh, in the past I procrastinate always more, and I always like last 5 hours get everything done. So I think so I think even if we procrastinate, it's still part of it's how we get ready for the work.
Yes. I've heard that procrastination isn't a time management issue. It's an emotional response, which I haven't dealt with, I guess. But like I was talking to my therapist. I was going to DC this was right when before I was working on my album. I needed to run my 45 minutes to an hour. And I booked a gig in DC to do this. That gave me enough stage time to do that. So I had a whole train ride or a bus ride to just like go over my notes. And I was telling him, I was like, I didn't. I just refreshed apps and tweeted and like looked at Instagram and interacted with, people online. And then I was like, I thought maybe at the hotel room, I'd go over my notes, and I didn't. And he's like, you know what? Maybe that's just not what you do, and you get it done, but you work it out. Like I do all my writing on stage, and I've accepted that. I don't write in a notebook most of the time. I'll tweet. And then from there, I'll say what I tweeted on stage, or I'll say on stage what I tweeted. And if I'm having a good time with it, then I expand on it on stage. But I just decided I'm not that comic that pulls jokes from midair and puts it into notebooks.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good mindset. For I think every person have their own work style, and one source of unhappiness is that there's gurus, there's successful people. They tell you you have to do this way, have to do that way. Then you try to fit into their style, and when you are unable to do that, you get mad at yourself. I think it's not healthy. I
totally agree. And a lot of we have it here, like I call them the older statesmen of comedy. They're in that mindset of like the way that they perform. My example is Jerry Seinfeld. I like him. I like the special, like I like his TV show and all that, but I hate how he's all like, you need to know exactly what time. He doesn't have a timer on stage for his opener. So you need to know exactly what 15 minutes is. He's all about writing in a notebook and all that. And I'm like, yeah, but he's not very prolific. And And that only works for him, for his kind of personality set. But the whole time, I think a lot of us comics are like, I guess that's what we have to do. And it made a lot of us miserable. And I think over time you realize you don't need to do that. I'm also becoming one of those comics. And I don't know if this is like weird, but I actually don't think there's anything wrong bringing notes up on stage. I mean, you should exactly kind of know exactly where you want to go, but I think it's fine to touch base and go look at where you're at. It's hard to memorize 45 minutes to an hour. Some of us aren't made that way. And for us to get shamed about it and saying that we're no good as comics, it's like, okay, what's our job is ultimately to make the crowd laugh. We're not getting rewarded because we memorize lines. It's for me, I feel like memorization is so robotic and not fun for me that bringing my notes on stage allows me to be a little bit looser and to go with the flow. And I enjoy myself better as a performer that way, which I think ends up being a better show for me. So the idea of like following another comic's process is insanity to me. And I don't know why we live by these constructs.
You know, like Sarah is so funny. After your show in Berlin, among other comedians, one of the major feedback I heard is that they were like, "Oh, love this style! Like, check his phone and check his notes. It's so like so freestyle. Feel so close to him, and just feel like they loved it. They loved the fact that he was checking his phone. He was checking his notes.
Well, he was like." We were also, it's fun to try out new material. And I think if you kind of have like a fan base, they get excited for that instead of like watching the process, rather watching the finished product sometimes. Like that's enjoyable. I know when I started, like it was really enjoyable for me if some of the headliners in Houston, if they stuck around for Monday and did the open mic, like I actually enjoyed watching them do the open mic than I did their polished set. Cause for me, I enjoy the process more than the finished product. I think it's more fascinating.
Yeah. I think what you said about copy another comic style is insane. I think after we made all those mistakes, realize we don't fit into their shoes, we realize it's insane, but it's not such a, how do you say, obvious statement or discovery. I think main source of unhappiness is not only about comedy, but a main source of unhappiness is that you see other people, how they do things, they claim they are successful and they claim this is the only way to do things, and you are unable to do it that way. So you beat yourself down, you think you are not good enough. But in order to be good at something, it's not about copying other people's approach. It's about finding what works for you, what makes you happy, what makes you enjoy your work. And when you enjoy your work, then you can deliver the best quality, not when you copy other people's style.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I feel like once you determine what works best for you, then that's like, you can only go up from there. Like my example is like, I have a comic friend, Julio Torres, who wrote on SNL, also is on created the series E-Spookies on HBO. He always brought a notebook on stage, and I remember him telling me about the booker of Conan being like, I can't book you because you are like, I don't know why you bring your notebook on stage. And I just remember telling him like this, because Julio is so gifted in a different way of thinking that, okay, he didn't get Conan because of that, but like what he got for being who he was and being so different. And so what, he brought a notebook on stage, but he was so funny that it didn't matter that people responded to him really, really well. And he just forged his own path. So he's like a really, to me, like a good example of like, just do you.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? It's so funny. Like, I think about all the comics that give people advice, like telling you what you can and cannot wear on stage. Like, don't wear shorts. And then the next thing you know, there's a guy that's wearing shorts on stage telling it like it is. And everyone's like, oh my God, how refreshing is this?
Yeah, and also with Ali Wang, and people used to say like no one will want to watch a woman who's pregnant on stage. Then she started the hype. Now everyone is pregnant.
Yeah,
on
everyone's
stage.
pregnant on stage. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just like it's insanity, and I know for me personally, it just took me forever to live or like do stand up the way that I want to do stand up rather than like what worked for Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah. I think that's takes a quite long process to learn. And you like I think most people in their 20s, they haven't learned the lesson yet to know that
Yeah.
you are you. You need to do what you feel most comfortable of. And but even if you know this, how do you say, okay, you need to do what you fits you. But I think even you know this, still very easy to step in the trap when the setting of the situation change a little bit, and then very easily we fall into the pattern blame ourselves. But I think, but once you know the logic, it's easier to stand a little bit aside to reasoning with yourself, to tell yourself, okay, maybe what I think wasn't logic, and maybe I can do it the other way. I have actually I was thinking about something like this very recently. Um, like so everyone said like for comedians, the most important thing is stage time, and you need to do it every night, and that's the most important thing. But since like 2 months ago, I don't feel like to do open mics anymore, and I just decided to take a break. But the voice inside of me and the voice from other comedians make me feel very judged. And like how can you be a comedian if you don't want to do stage time? But on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing my solo like 3-4 times a month. I don't think I have to go to clubs every night if I do my solo almost every week. And I'm still very judgmental to myself. Then I was thinking, oh, thinking about Bon Burnham. Like he didn't do stage for 5 years. And those people would, 5 years ago, they will look at him and say, hey, he's lost. There's no way for him as a comedian. Then 5 years later, he come out with a masterpiece.
No, yeah. And things are changing in that aspect of like, okay, maybe you don't want to do like the stage time for that, or go to the saddest open mics 5 times a night, every day of the week, and not have a life for yourself. That we're finding now with social media, like if that's not for you, it doesn't, that's like an old way of thinking that you can create like an online entertainment for yourself, a voice, and then you've got your own fan base. So when you go out to these cities, you've got people there to see you because they want to see you, and you can do whatever you want. So yeah, if that's not working for you, but you're working several times a month on your one woman show, when you get that amount of because you get longer stage time for that you're still doing probably the same amount of hours.
I think so. I think it's also not about, okay, I want to quit open mics from now on. I think it's about self-accepting, knowing, okay, it's fine if I don't feel like it for 2 months, I can take a break and enjoy this 2 months break instead of not doing mics and also beating myself up and feeling miserable for 2 months.
So. Yeah. Nowadays I'm like, it's quantity over quality. Like, how does that benefit you if you're going out 5 nights a week and you're just doing the same set over and over again, and because you're not working on anything or writing anything or living a life to create content? How is that benefiting you when you could probably narrow that down to maybe 3 days a week and then have a life, and now you have experiences to draw on?
Yeah, I think having a life is a very important part. I think like to be a good comedian, like of course you need to be good at with the craft and the joke structure, but in order to be a great comedian, you have to experience life. You have to experience all those happiness and tragedy in life, and have the emotions and have the time to reflect on it. And that's the best comedy. But if you just forget to live, only do comedy, then you wouldn't have have material like that.
Yeah. You're just living kind of like the same life day to day. It's the same people that you're seeing over and over again, that you're like, you kind of need to have a perspective and grow with your life, and your material grows with you if you're personally growing. And I think a lot of times when I talk to other comics that have had success now or whatever, I think general consensus and what we've learned through COVID and when we were in lockdown is like, I think a lot of us realized we weren't living a life that we wanted or that was good for our mental health. And most comics they regret putting so much emphasis on stand-up, being like, oh, I don't know if I can go on vacation because that's during Montreal callbacks for laughs. Like, you're living your life on something that might happen when you should just go and take that vacation and just try it next year. Like, not to live your life on comedic timing terms, but like just live your life and then see where you can fit the comedy in there. Because most of us are like, I wish I did more things rather than dedicating like all of my life to stand up. There are family moments where I'm like, I kept leaving because I had to do stand up. And now I wish I stuck around and did the family moments more than the stand up. But everything's in hindsight.
Yeah.
You only have that clarity looking back on it.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of living a life, how was your trip to Berlin?
It was good. It was a little weird at first because we thought maybe with just like having American vaccine passports that it could be fine. We were going to the Christmas markets, and it's weird because it felt like very similar to the US of like, if one guard didn't let us in, we tried the other entrance, and then they were like, that's fine. They go in. So it was like, it was up to like whatever mood you got somebody in. And then, but then it was annoying that we would have to figure out another entrance to get in. And then somebody told us about we can get the European Vax passport set up if we go to the pharmacies. But then a lot of the pharmacies didn't want to help us until we found like the third pharmacy by our hotel area. And she was very helpful and set up the paperwork. And it just took her 15 minutes. But I think some people just didn't want to do the extra work for us. And then as soon as we got that passport, then everything was like dandy. But I felt like you guys were like us, like some things were open, some things weren't. It was like, it felt quiet for sure.
How long you stayed in Berlin?
We were there for, I think, 4 days. So it wasn't long, but I think it was enough to like, see the city. And then I think my favorite time was when we did get to see stand up, because I like to see how, I don't like doing the tourist attractions so much. Like, I think I'd rather travel and be in a city and live like the citizens live. I like infrastructure. I like to know how a city runs, what you do, what your day-to-day life is.
Yeah.
Go to the places that you guys like to go, not like it's like that here in New York. Everyone's like Times Square and all that. And most locals are like, ugh.
Yeah.
We know where all the better, better coffee shops to go to, the better thrift stores.
You went to see comedy. Which comedy club you went?
Oh, when we were in Berlin, just my favorite moment is when we got to perform in I guess the basement of the pizza place or whatever.
You make it sounds like a really shady place, but actually it's a 130 people venue.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like how it was like reminded me of like the hot shows here in New York that aren't clubs. It's like the hot underground show to go to. That's what it reminded me of. But yeah, it was a nice sized crowd, more than what you would consider for a regular New York crowd, for sure.
And for after the show, did you hang out with someone? Did you go out that night?
Yeah, we hung out with was it Shaq? That's his name. Yeah. We went to get burgers and then he drove us around. I wanted to go to see the Berlin nightlife, but a lot of them, the clubs were closed. So we drove by it, which I still enjoyed. And then I like driving around, and I like looking at the buildings and like, you know, different neighborhoods and all that stuff. Like I find that really fascinating.
Did you go in front of what's the name? Berghain?
Yes. The big club. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he told us about it, and I've heard about it, and I'd love to go one day to be a fly on the wall. First of all, I just like I like dancing.
But people are not really dancing there. Like
I know. What is it? They're just doing that because like was it? I think when I was 19, I lived in England for a little bit. And while I was living in England, I went to go visit my friend that lived in near Ramstein. And I remember going to kind of like, it was a dance club, but it wasn't like, no, they weren't like dancing to house music or anything like that. They were listening to like bands like Ween that were just like kind of light punk rock, and people were just kind of like dancing like this. And I was like, oh, I love this. Like dancing to like Guns N' Roses, where you wouldn't dance to that here in New York.
Have you, do you listen to techno music?
I'm not like, if you started naming bands, I wouldn't know, but I do enjoy.
They are not bands. You don't know what's techno music.
I know. Well, like DJs or people that create the beats and stuff. Like, you know, I grew up on Daft Punk. I know that's not, but I love that stuff. Dead Mouse, I liked.
You should check out the techno music. Like in Berlin, if you say you don't like techno music, you are discriminated against. And for many years, I didn't feel safe to say it. But but it's just boom, 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 the whole night.
Yeah.
And
I just like it. I mean, I like it. I grew up on 80s new wave that feels like a transition into that.
Okay, cool. The next time you are in Berlin, maybe I can take you there. I think Shahad haven't got into Berghain yet, but I got in.
You did?
Yeah.
I know. I'm like, I don't even know if I could be dressed appropriate. I mean, I was told a little bit of like what it's like there, and it sounds so fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's like I think it would be fun, like one day when they fully open, just not to go inside, but just interview people in front of it, because you see the most weird dressing people at like 3 a.m. Saturday night, and the line is like 2 kilometers long, and it's fucking cold in winter, and people are wearing tank top and shorts. It's just insane.
I'm like, yeah, I don't think I could handle that now. Maybe my early 20s, but I definitely would love to just go in, walk around, and then come out and be like, great. Or doesn't it go to like 6 or 7 in the morning or something insane like that?
For you, the best way to go is to go on Sunday morning. So you wake up early, eat breakfast, and go there.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
That is exactly what I want to do. Eat breakfast, go in, dance a little bit, and then go for the rest of my day.
Yeah. And have the thrilling feeling to feel, oh, where I get rejected, where I get in.
Yeah.
It's I think it's a fun experience for 1 or 2 times, but I'm not a person who would go very regularly.
No, I don't think I could handle it. But there's like I'm from Houston, and there's a dance club that I like called Numbers in Houston, and they have Friday 80s music, and it's not just like top 40 80s, it's deep cuts, and it's new wave, it's Bajas and all that stuff. I love it, and every time I go, that's where I go, and that's my fun favorite thing to do.
Cool. So maybe there's a chance you actually like techno.
Maybe I think I would. I know there is part of it, like to me, some of it just feels generic, like anybody could have just created that, but there's some stuff that really does have like a good beat to it, and then I love a drop. And you know, the release, I love it all. Like it's fun, and I like the feeling. I like a scene. I like anything that feels like a scene to me.
If you like this, you know, like Berlin has a really, really great festival called the Fusion. I think I forgot whom. There's a guy went there and talked on Joe Rogan podcast. So it's really, really insane. This festival, I don't know. I forgot how many people was there, like 10,000 or 20,000 people there. There's no police, there's no security, and there's fire everywhere. And I'm like, how come they think it's safe? And I was like 3 a.m. sitting in front of like how do you say like fire pits, and there's a drunk guy just run here and jump on the fire pits, and that fire pit is 1.5 like how do you say radiator, and he just jump on the fire pits and run away. I'm like, wow, this can go wrong in so many ways. He could like flip over the fire pits and everyone get hurt. And I was so scared, but then I look around, everyone is having fun.
Just normal. Yeah. I think that sounds great. That almost sounds like what our festival, I think it's in Nevada, Burning Man.
Burning Man, yes.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to that.
Yes, cool. I think lots of people go to Fusion. They also really like Burning Man, but Fusion is just cheaper. But like it's very Berlin style. It's cheaper, but you cannot get tickets.
Yeah, like, no, that sounds like something I would really enjoy to watch and kind of like experience.
Yeah, we had to bribe people in order to get tickets. So it's
okay. Well, you know, the bummer is like Joe's really not into that stuff. And that's the thing that I'm like, I have to figure out to get someone else to come with me. Cause that's not, I mean, I think he'd like to see it for 5 minutes. I don't think he'd like to hang out for 4 hours, which I'd rather hang out for 4 hours.
Oh, that's a place you need to be there for like a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I forgot to ask, what's you talk about you went through the 12 step program.
Yeah.
And how long this program lasts?
12-step program is like, there's so many of them. There's for like Alcoholics Anonymous, there's for narcotics, there's for overeating, there's sex, love, and addiction. And it all runs under the same umbrella of principles. There's also Al-Anon, which is like family, if you have family members that are alcohol and addiction, because it's odd when you go to these places or like these programs, and you can find them all over. They're like, it's like finding your local open mic in any city. Like you can find them online. It's weird. All these people, you think that you're so different in what you're going through, but everybody kind of like, a lot of people have the same feeling. So it's like a weird spiritual program thing. Like, you know, the first step is admitting that you have a problem. The second step is like, accepting that there's a higher power. So like, if you're not religious, if you don't believe in a God, you can accept like Mother Nature, or just like in the group, what this whole experience of being humans is like beyond you, meaning like you're not in control of your life, which is, I think, a good thing to accept. You can't control it. I mean, there's a prayer of like, accept the things I cannot change and the wisdom to know the difference. I think that's very helpful to be like, okay, this is something I can't accept. So what can I do to make it better, or to accept some things? Then there's like, you do, they call it like kind of an inventory, which also is a sexual inventory of like, when somebody's done you wrong, you write what their responsibility of it is, what your responsibility of it, which allows you to see where you play in the thing. Like, things aren't your fault, but you also put yourself in situations and you can control that. That's the part you can control. So it's those kind of things that you deal with. And then it's like, after you've gone through your inventory of realizing where you've gone wrong, it's like, then there's people in your life during your drug and alcohol years, and with whatever addiction that you're going through, that you've hurt through your self-centeredness, that it's called making an amends. And I've done that. And that's very liberating. Some people won't accept it, and that's fine. That's their business. And you can't force people to accept your apology. And then going from there after like doing stuff like that, then you live your life like an amends. Like you try not to fall back on your old habits. You try to do things that are, what's right for you. And that's the program. And then the rest is like not forcing the message on people. So it's not like a thing that we're looking to like recruit. It's just if you're interested, we'll tell you about it. Mm-hmm. So it's not, I know some people think it feels culty, but it's not. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. That's fine. But I know it's just worked for a lot of other people. And then that's an ongoing process. So it's not like something that you do and then you're done. Mm-hmm. That people always talk about like in the program or like in AA, that, they go through the step work again, over and over again. You can go years and being like, you know what, I feel like I'm kind of running into the same problems again. And it's obviously a me issue. What's my part? And then you go through your inventory again. So it's just kind of like, I think a way to live your life. Yeah. Of like on a basic rule of practices. And yeah. I think it feels to me the most honest way of living your life that's better, that treats people well and treats yourself well.
Yeah. For me, it sounds like, in the book, Johann Hari wrote called Chasing the Scream. It's a book about addiction. He said addiction is not the issue. It's that your life is a glass and it's empty. You don't have anything inside. And you use addiction to fill it up. But to get rid of addiction is slowly to build up your life, to put in things inside of a glass, like a friendship, family, hobbies, passion, and everything. And once your glass is full, then the addiction will go away itself. So for what you describe about the 12-step program, sounds more like helping you how to live a healthy life and helping you to put water into your glass.
Yeah, kind of like prioritizing things that should be important to you, like family and relationships, and those will fill up that glass. And it's true. I guess the term that we use in a 12-step program, they call it a God-sized hole, which I always feel that way. Like you fill it up. And that's why, like phone addiction, eating, sex or love or alcohol and drugs, like instead of doing valuable things, you're putting in the quick fix and it's not doing anything.
Through the 12 steps, when you're doing inventory and everything, did you have resistance at some point? Did you try to run away?
No, because I think at that point nobody forced me to do anything. And so it was a choice. It was my own choice, and I felt like there was nothing to run away from. So it was just like a thing that just worked for me. Like I some people, I feel like it just doesn't work for them, and that's fine. And so it is a thing that they probably do just run away from.
And the whole 12 steps, how long it took you to go through it?
It's up to you. Some people can go through it really fast, and then other people take time and kind of like sit with it, each step, and like how important it is to you. And like, I don't know, I think for me, it probably took about 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Wow.
Yeah. But that's just like, meeting up once a week you have like, eventually it's a sponsor, somebody that's been in the program for a while, that's already worked the steps. They walk you through it. So I would meet up like once a week after a meeting with my sponsor. And it's somebody that you can like share your, really sad moments or things that you actually can't really express to people in your life. And it's better to just tell it to a stranger rather than somebody that's within your circle that can pass judgment on you. And so it's like a safe space, I think. And so they kind of walk you through the steps. So it was through that, like, I had a notebook and I wrote down all the, like, what my part was, what their part was, what I can do better, what my fear of is. Cause you question, why are you doing the things you're doing? And it's all fear-based.
Yeah.
and then you realize that your fear might be irrational.
And what's your relationship right now with substance?
Well, I'm completely sober, so I don't do any drugs or alcohol. I mean, I like coffee, but I don't consider that anything. I would say though, my cross addiction what ends up happening sometimes is when you quit one addiction, that's why it's a symptom. It's not, it's the bigger issue is you. I think my cross addiction is phone addiction. I was really hoping it was going to be hard work, but I went into phone addiction. And so that one's harder because you don't really hit a bottom with that too much. It's not like I'm going to go homeless, but I definitely can affect my relationships, and I'm aware of that. So I do work on it, and I do need it for work and kind of life shit.
I really recommend the kitchen safe. What I do right now is that I lock my phone before I sleep, and so until noon. So that means when I wake up, I cannot check my phone. So I need to go on my day, like to do sports, go out for a walk, clean the house. And once I'm in that flow, I'm fine with my phone. I can live peacefully with it. But if I wake up, check my phone, then my whole day is fucked.
Yes, it's weird. This is when I quit smoking. I remember I got that book by Alan Carr called The Easy Ways of Quit Smoking. And he's like, it's only when you remove yourself from that addiction, you're only kind of dealing with the awkward feelings of being separated from that for maybe 5 minutes. And it does disappear, but we just don't like that feeling. And we're used to like instant satisfaction. So that's why it's hard to break. But like, yeah, it's like, as soon as you can get past that 5-minute hurdle, you realize you're fine and that you've managed to like, do the things that you are supposed to do. And that is now becoming fulfilling to you. Like even doing the dishes, that makes me feel better than being on my phone.
Yeah. Like in the past, I didn't like to do dishes, but now I learned that I really have phone addiction too. So what I did is that I got a, how do you say, broken phone. So that phone is really broken, and I don't even have SIM card in it anymore. And I lock my actual phone, but I let the broken phone out. And in the morning, I just listen to audiobooks like, how to focus, how to deal with your addiction issue, all those books. And then I wash my my dishes. And I learned if I wash my dishes in the morning and make the kitchen clean, then my whole day feels good.
Yeah, way better. That's why I stopped going to the gym, because I kept looking at my phone while I was at the gym. That now I do yoga or I run, because those are two activities that I'm away from my phone for about an hour.
Me too. I cannot do gym at all, because then I play with my phone. But I do like this kind of CrossFit where the trainer shout out to you, or swim, or like a cycling class where I cannot touch the phone.
Yes, I find that, because that ends up being like good for me mentally and then also physically.
Yeah, cool. Sarah, I hope you after our call, you go on your Amazon, get the kitchen safe, and lock up your phone.
I think I will look into the kitchen safe, because that sounds perfect for me.
Yeah, and the Amazon employee, because I heard your like a stand-up special. You talk the Amazon employee will put a knife and the rope in the kitchen safe.
Yes, that too.
Yeah.
They're my therapists.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And now I'm reaching to the final question, and the most important question in the whole session. So if you can recommend 1 or 2 or 3 stand-up special what's your recommendation? What's your favorite? What's those ones you keep watching and watching?
There's so many, I don't know, like I like a lot of stuff by Louis C.K., but the one I wouldn't recommend the most is like his Comedy Store one. I don't think that's his best one, but all the others are pretty good. These are my favorite. Let's see. I really like Adrienne Appalucci. She has Baby Skeletons.
Mm-hmm.
She's really funny. That's dark humor. So if you're sensitive about subject matter, be careful.
Is she wear glass? And is
we had a podcast together, but we're still friends. We just ended the podcast. It was called Badge, but she was my podcast partner for a while.
Is she on DeGeneres?
Yes, Netflix.
Oh, I know her. Yeah, she's amazing. She's so great. I remember the joke about like sexual offenders, and
yes,
she made an analogy with murders, and it was hilarious. It was so funny. She's amazing.
She's great. And she's one of like the funniest people I know. Joe List, I Hate Myself. I have to put that one in there.
I knew you are going to say Joe List. That's why I didn't say one one comedy special, because otherwise you'll say Joe List.
Yeah. The thing, it's like weird because I don't know like comedy special names, but I do know the comic. So Nate Bargatze is one that I really like. God, who else? Patrice O'Neill. He's really funny. Elephant in the Room. I think that's the name of his special from years and years ago. Who do I like? Rory Scovel. Mm-hmm. Watch him on YouTube. He's got a really great YouTube channel, but I love all of his bits. And also he's an amazing comic to see live, because I think he's probably one of the few comics, if you went to see him one night and then went to go see him the next night, you're going to get a totally different show.
Wow. Insane memory then.
Yeah. Well, he's more improvisational. He goes with the flow, and he's really good off the cuff. Mm-hmm. So he's one that I highly recommend.
Cool. I check them out. Thank you so much for the recommendations.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for doing the podcast, and thank you for being open to talk about your mental journey, not only with me, but also on stage. I think this is very important to break the stigma, and I think it makes lots of positive change to our society. And thank you a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, it was I'm very bad at ending things. Okay. Dear audience, thank you for listening, and I hope you stay safe, stay alive. Bye-bye.
Yeah, stay alive. Bye.
Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode. There's a few announcements I'd like to make. So on 27th of February, it's a Sunday, we have our anxiety comedy special at a Cosmic Comedy Club in Berlin Mitte. If you haven't got a ticket, please do. It will be awesome. We have the most anxious comedians in Berlin doing their mental health material for you. And besides that, now I have my Patreon page. For as little as €3.50 a month, you can support my project on mental health. Thank you so much. See you another episode. Ciao, ciao.